Jasmine Crockett's got another hot take. No blacks and whites on a wedding cake. The Democrats' new chosen one, Jasmine Crockett, is in the news again for an old clip where she attacked Florida Rep Byron Donalds for marrying a white woman. Roll it, Bertha.
The fact that you sitting around talking about life was better under Jim Crow? Is this because you don't understand history? Or literally it's because you married a white woman and so you think that whitewashed you?
The second Greg Gutfeld leaned in, the room shifted. Something sharp was coming. Not a joke, but a strike. Jasmine Crockett didn't see it, but the storm was heading right for her. That grin on her face, it wouldn't last. She looked ready to argue, but Greg brought something hotter. No slow start. He jumped in with zero hesitation. His first hit wasn't just clever, it exploded. She tried to answer with one of her fiery lines, but Greg flipped it like a coin. First they cursed, now they thirst for blood, he shouted, and the crowd broke into cheers. She barely got another word out before Greg was back at it, slicing through her talking points like paper. She wanted to preach, but Greg made her the punchline. At one point she mumbled, I think you're okay with punching, and Greg just stared, calm, unimpressed, like a parent watching a toddler attempt math. Then he dropped the line, Congresswoman or Chaos Coordinator, and it hit like a hammer. Every line she gave felt like a TikTok draft, but Greg wasn't laughing, he was tearing it apart.
First they cursed, now they thirst for blood. Jasmine Crockett is upping her temper tantrums, now saying the only way Democrats can win elections is by throwing hands.
I think you punch. I think you're okay with you okay with punching. It's Ted Cruz. This dude has to be knocked over the head, hard, right? There is no niceties with him. At all.
He sliced through her defenses like wet tissue under pressure, every answer collapsing the moment she raised it. Each time she tried to fire back with flair, Greg twisted it into something sharper, something unforgettable. She brought the volume, but he brought the accuracy. That grin of his widened, the kind that says, there's more coming, like someone finding a gold coin in a joke shop. And then came the quote that stopped the room cold. Or literally, it's because you married a white woman and so you think that whitewashed you. Greg didn't flinch. He blinked once, then fired right back. That's not very woke, is it? She tried to recover, but the fix was worse than the stumble. She claims that it had nothing to do with the fact that he actually moves by wheels, she said, and Greg tilted his head like the twist in a bad movie just hit. He moved quickly, breaking down her scrambled thoughts like they were a blooper reel on loop. What was supposed to be her big moment started unraveling fast, and Greg leaned into it like a critic watching a low-budget sci-fi flick about TikTok politicians running Congress. He tossed her resume aside and zoomed in on the spectacle, all noise, no content. Her speeches, he said, weren't politics, they were auditions. She doesn't need a podium, she needs fog machines, backup dancers, and a stage cue. The audience roared. Greg delivered the final jab. Even the fog machine would be less dramatic. And in the silence that followed, no one had to ask if she lost the room. It was written all over their faces.
Or literally, it's because you married a white woman and so you think that whitewashed you.
That's not very woke, is it? Of course, Crockett isn't the only Democrat who's opposed to interracial marriage. So, Dana, Governor Hot Wheels, she claims that had nothing to do with the fact that he actually moves by wheels in a wheelchair, and he's good looking.
Her cleanup.
Gutfeld leaned back like a man watching a live sitcom that was writing itself in real time, and he wasn't missing a second. Every time Crockett spoke, he readied the blade sharper than before. This wasn't just a takedown, it was a televised clinic on how to dismantle performance politics. He didn't just expose the noise, he spun it into a game of whack-a-mole, where every pop-up outrage from her ended with Greg flattening it on impact. When she shifted into identity politics, waving her arms like she was leading a pep rally for victimhood, Greg stayed locked in, calm, knowing it was all smoke. He saw through the act like cellophane on a broken teleprompter. She's not debating, he said. She's auditioning, and that hit hard. Crockett wasn't there to govern, she was there to go viral. Then he paused, leaned back just enough to deliver the line with punch. It's giving straight up TMZ at this point. That alone sent the panel into fits, but things got worse fast. Crockett rolled into a mocking impression of Governor Abbott, grinning as she said, "We in these hot Texas streets, honey," spinning through an insult like she was dancing at a roast. Then she piled on, "And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot mess." The clip spread online like wildfire, but Greg didn't blink. His calm held as if he saw the crash coming. Then came the strike. Clean and cutting. She doesn't just bring opinions, Greg declared. She brings a fire alarm nobody asked for. With that, her viral moment flipped straight into public embarrassment. Greg dismantled her delivery with ease, showing how quickly she turned real issues into a chaotic solo act. She could be talking about highways, he said, and somehow end up ranting about split ends and colonizer concrete. And with that, the absurdity was locked in, unforgettable and impossible to miss.
So much for Michelle Obama's when they go low, we go high. Crockett went as low as humanly possible by mocking Governor Greg Abbott for being paralyzed.
We in these hot Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot mess.
Crockett wasn't just chaotic, she was a full-blown spectacle, and not in a good way. It felt like someone matched C-SPAN with a theater production gone wrong, where the script vanished and the fog machine had a mind of its own. Greg didn't let the moment slide. She needs less stage time and more study time, he jabbed, sending the panel into hysterics. She kept talking in strange riddles, while Greg stood there holding up the mirror like a reality check in real time. Then he added, "You can hear history textbooks weeping in the background," and the internet instantly ran with it. Before she even finished, the memes were everywhere. But Greg wasn't done. Just when she thought she had regained footing, he twisted the knife with a grin. "Honestly, I want to see more of her. She's the perfect face for the modern Democrat Party." That hit like a siren and chaos exploded on set. One voice nervously added, "I do think there are a lot of Democrats that really like Jasmine Crockett," but it got buried under a quieter, sharper remark. Let's be clear, the name calling is on both sides. Greg, laser focused, didn't ease up. One guy in a wheelchair, another hot take. No blacks and whites on a wedding cake. The silence was deafening, and then came the wave of laughter. Greg wasn't just breaking down her words, he was exposing the theater behind them. "This isn't politics," he said. "It's performance art, dipped in glitter and rage." He even called her style verbal parkour, always flipping, always dodging, never landing. Precision? Never heard of her. It stung because it was true. She treats facts like a cat with a laser pointer, chasing, missing, and blaming the furniture. And still, she kept speaking like the fire alarm never stopped ringing. Greg circled back to her now infamous Governor Hot Wheels line, the one she's recycled over and over. Come on now, and the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot mess. Greg stared at the camera like he was hosting a ghost story, whispered, "Whoa," then smirked. And she's acting like that wasn't about the wheelchair? It wasn't just that one moment. Receipts came pouring in, from old likes to comments about Abbott rolling away. This wasn't a slip, it was a pattern, and Greg tore through it like reading a shameful list at a comedy roast. There's a whole ecosystem thriving off charisma with zero content, he said, and Crockett, she was the prime example. He compared her to a viral Twitter thread brought to life. Loud, scrambled, allergic to clarity. Every sentence she says feels like a group project gone rogue. She didn't need a podium. She needed stage lights, backup dancers, and maybe a reminder of what the topic was. Because Greg had nailed it. She wasn't there to lead. She was there to trend. And as she dove deeper into her speech spiral, Greg leaned back like a man watching a car crash. Slow, shiny, and covered in glitter. Have a look.
You know, Richard, I don't know about you, but I want to see way more of Jasmine Crockett. I want to see her everywhere. I think she is the perfect face of the modern Democrat Party. What say you?
I do think that there are a lot of Democrats that really like Jasmine Crockett. But let's be very clear here, and let's acknowledge that the name calling is on both sides of the aisle. Everybody does it. It gins up the base. I mean, I think we can go through Donald Trump's greatest hits of name calling, and we can go blow for blow. And I think
find one about a guy in a wheelchair. Jasmine Crockett's got another hot take. No blacks and whites on a wedding cake. The Democrats' new chosen one, Jasmine Crockett.
This wasn't political commentary anymore. This was a full-scale breakdown of performance disguised as policy. Watching Crockett speak on the House floor, Greg said, was like watching someone improvise an alternate universe in real time. One second it's potholes, and the next she's screaming about ancestral trauma caused by asphalt. She could blame buffering on colonialism, Greg quipped, and still get a standing ovation from people pretending it all made sense. It wasn't just satire anymore. It was prophecy unfolding. unfolding. What stunned him wasn't her delivery, it was the applause that followed. Not because she made sense, but because no one in the room wanted to admit it didn't. It was like a dinner party where someone declares, "I think the moon is gluten," and everyone nods to avoid the awkward silence. Greg called it the Crockett effect, bold confusion packaged as bravery, sprinkled with dramatic flair and backed by people too nervous to say that was nonsense. She didn't debate, she performed, and Greg nailed it with one brutal line. Debating Jasmine Crockett is like playing chess with a pigeon. She knocks over the board, leaves a mess, then struts around shouting checkmate. But the real danger, Greg warned, was that she believed her own act. Every speech she gave carried an imaginary spotlight, complete with background applause she probably heard in her own head. Greg called it congressional cosplay, and Crockett came fully outfitted, with glitter, sound effects, and a microphone that deserved hazard pay. Then came a punchline that had everyone howling. If you dropped one of her speeches into Microsoft Word, Clippy would pop up and say, "It looks like you're trying to make a point. Would you like some help?" And Greg didn't even blink when he added, "You just know she'd accuse Clippy of bias and throw the laptop out the window." But it wasn't just the metaphors that made it absurd, it was the sheer chaos of her delivery. Every message she tried to land got tangled in buzzwords and broken logic. Greg compared it to someone trying to use GPS inside a fever dream, loud, lost, and absolutely convinced they were on track. Catch up this clip and I will be right back.
It's streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now.
Whoa.
And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot ass mess, honey. So,
Now she claims that she wasn't talking about Abbott's wheelchair at all. Yet she's mentioned Abbott's wheels before. In 2022, she posted Beto's rolling around the state. Where is Abbott rolling to? And according to the Washington Free Beacon, Crockett also liked several Facebook comments referring to Abbott as Hot Wheels back in 2021.
When someone finally pushed back against her, it wasn't debate. It was a spectacle, bursting open like haunted party confetti. Crockett didn't respond with logic. She gasped, pointed, scowled, and launched into another act. Greg didn't hold back anymore. She doesn't need a translator for Spanish or French. She needs one for plain English, he said. And the jab cut deep. Her metaphors, he added, were like GPS signals bouncing off a busted satellite, spinning in circles, lost in space, and never landing where intended. But she didn't stop. She doubled down like the script depended on it. Then Greg tossed the spotlight to Tyrus like a coach calling a desperate timeout. "Tyrus, I go to you for no particular reason," he said, smirking as the chaos unfolded. Tyrus blinked, clearly baffled. "Is she making any point there?" he asked, watching the disaster unfold in real time. Greg already knew the answer, and he let the silence confirm it. Crockett returned to her one-woman show, flailing through the moment like policy hearings were auditions. She could stand in front of a burning building, Greg said, call it a light drizzle, and then accuse the fire truck of being ableist. The scariest part? People would still clap, not because they believed it, but because they didn't want to be the one who didn't. Greg called it Stockholm Ovation, the applause of survival, where confusion holds the audience hostage. Then he imagined the inevitable next chapter, a memoir called How I Yelled My Way Through Congress, or a podcast where she debates her own reflection over coffee from a glitter mug labeled Truth Bombs. At this point, Greg wasn't exaggerating, he was narrating. Crockett didn't offer points, she released fog. Every phrase was a smokescreen, every pause a dramatic beat in her running performance. She wasn't there for governance, she was staging her own spin-off of America's Next Top Outrage. And Greg, he was in the front row, watching it all with a bucket of popcorn and a grin that said, "I saw this train coming."
Not just for one thing, I'm mad at Charmaine the guy because he should have kicked her out. See, the problem is that we are allowing our own culture to be openly racist and get away with it. Now, if a white person is offended by that, and they should be, they say something, it's like, it's not the same thing. But if you say that and another brother looks at you and goes, "Man, you wrong for that."
You know, they are so lost and they just have no idea how to come back. They're cursing, they're fighting, they're burning, they're lost. I said it months ago. The party is over. They've got to come up with something new. And this woman chasing a guy that's New York City. That's a subway. In New York City, you can wear a MAGA hat.
Even her press clips felt like unrehearsed improv, wild, unpredictable, and spinning out faster than the headlines could catch up. One moment she's tackling immigration, and the next she's shouting, "Ain't none of you trying to go inform right now," while while flailing her arms like she's guiding planes through a solar eclipse. Greg's eyes lit up. It was like watching a unicorn crafted from contradictions. She didn't bring facts, he said. She brought confidence, volume over accuracy. That was the entire brand. And the applause? It felt rehearsed, robotic, as if everyone got the memo to clap no matter what. One man clapped off beat, confused, like even his hands didn't understand. Greg swore someone near the camera mouth, "What is happening?" But it wasn't agreement, it was submission. The room had been trapped in her vocal obstacle course so long, they clapped just to make it out alive. Greg leaned back, shook his head, and said it plainly. She doesn't need critics. She needs closed captions and a warning label. Then came her now infamous meltdown. The raise your hands command. Raise your arm! Raise your hand, she barked, trying to wring agreement from the crowd like it was a courtroom chant. And Greg, he nearly hit the floor. She tried making a point about immigration by mocking Americans. It didn't just miss the mark, it dove off the edge with flair. That's when Greg summed her up with precision. Chaos in a designer blazer, a walking headline machine who turned every mic into a stage and every issue into a musical number. And as the lights dimmed, Greg didn't need to embellish a thing. Jasmine Crockett had already written his monologue for him, unscripted, dramatic, and wildly off course. Because in the circus that modern politics has become, Crockett didn't show up with answers. She showed up with jazz hands. And Greg, he had his popcorn, his seat front and center, and a smirk ready for whatever she did next under the big top of the Crockett Carnival.